Thanks for joining us again, Zali. It's been a pretty wet and sodden a week or two, hasn't it, up and down the coast, and quite a lot of flooding occurring even in the Northern Beaches area. How do you think it's been affecting the local community there?
Yeah, look, obviously, the East Coast, Southern Queensland and Northern New South Wales, Lismore, everywhere's been very battered by the floods, and we've seen just record amounts of rain, and just the intensity of the rainfall has just been staggering. And we saw that with the floods, but we saw that locally with Manly and the Northern Beaches just pummeled with water intensity, flooding around, Manly Corso under 30 centimetres of water, risk of flooding from overspill of Manly Dam. And just that real stark reminder of the change of intensity that we're seeing now around natural disasters. Obviously, this all culminating in the very same week where we had the release of the IPCC report warning us that this is global warming happening now. It's intensifying all these natural disasters, that they're compounding from one to the next, to the effect that government and local government systems and structures are just not going to be able to cope and not going to be able to keep communities safe. So it's that vital reminder of we are in the decade where we need to take strong action to reduce emissions, to limit the amount of global warming that's going to occur, to try and keep our communities safe in the future.
Yes, well, I mean, there's nothing new in the warnings, which have been around for some time, as we all know, and they're just all coming basically true. But in the first instance, too, perhaps even our inability not only to respond in the long term, as you've said, through climate change, but even national responses to disaster response don't seem to be perhaps up to the ball even. There's a lot of criticism, even from a former New South Wales Liberal politician running federally, basically saying that nothing's changed in the efficiency and effectiveness of natural disaster response mechanisms since the bushfires.
No, look, unfortunately, the government also defunded in 2017 and the National Disasters Adaptation Centre. Look, I've been calling for this very loudly with the climate change bills because we simply don't have at the moment national risk assessments. And that's, some communities are going to be exposed to drought and water shortages, will be exposed to flooding and cyclonic weather, some coastal erosions, others bushfires. We need to have an overall map and risk assessment, a risk response planning, to ensure communities have proper planning and proper strategies in place and resources. And the government's ignoring that. And that's why it's so important that we legislate it. So I'm still very much pushing for them legislating the climate change bills, because then we can have mandated risk assessments, adaptation planning to respond to those risks, and then the mitigation planning piece around the emissions reduction. So still vitally important that we put this legislation in place so that communities are not left exposed to the professionalisms of the government of the day, and actually have systems there established, non-political, that can respond when the need is there.
Yes, well, I mean, the human cost, of course, is enormous. I think even these floods, over 20 people apparently have died already. And we're not only not adopting a long-term approach, as you say, now we're facing huge economic costs that we're going to see here. A lot of businesses, a lot of jobs paying the costs. Insurance premiums are going to be going up. In other words, we just seem to be blind to any problems. We just seem to want to pay up and have to face the consequences of not doing anything, don't we?
Yeah, look, and it's also what a lot of people ignore is the ongoing costs of global warming, other small aspects. So, of course, in the communities, there's a big cost, like, whole shopping areas and towns, wiped, that need to rebuild, and whether or not they can, and the period of disruption of trading and all of that. But it's even things like pretty much every road around Sydney at the moment has huge potholes developing because of the amount and the of rain that we've received. And now that is an infrastructure cost, right? These roads were designed to have a certain, life, a certain period of time before which they would need to be repaired. All of that is going to have to happen much more frequently, the repair work, the maintenance, the review of the systems. And these are additional costs that we will all pay as a community in our levies, in our council rates. And so this is where we are all going to pay a tax as a result of the cost of meeting these consequences. And rather than having, invested in the infrastructure and the transition, government is really imposing it back on the communities. And I really don't think that's not good. It's not fair. And I think that it's time that the government took proper care of communities.